When my daughter got married, I hid the fact that I had inherited $9 million from her grandfather, my father. Thank God I didn't say anything because, after the wedding, her husband showed up with a notary demanding it all. He had no idea who he was messing with. I just smiled and said something that made their faces turn pale and their hands start to shake. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. I was standing in the middle of my living room, the winter chill seeping through the windows of our modest city home, while Claire confronted me with fire in her eyes. It was January 2024, and the argument had exploded like a storm I hadn't seen coming. She held a sample wedding invitation in her hand, the glossy paper crinkling in her grip. "Dad, I'm marrying Edward. Whether you like it or not," she shouted, her voice cracking with defiance. I paced back and forth on the worn carpet, my fists clenched at my sides. How had we gotten to this? Just a few weeks before, at that awkward family dinner, Edward had belittled my old engineering job, calling it quaint, with a little smirk that made my blood boil. I had stayed quiet then for her, but now, Claire, he's arrogant, self-centered. I've seen how he treats people, like that text he sent you last month, dismissing your ideas as cute. He's not right for you. She threw the invitation onto the coffee table, where it skidded and knocked over a framed photo of the three of us, me, Claire, and her late mother, from happier times. The glass shattered on impact, a sharp sound that mirrored the fracture in my heart. You're just jealous, because I'm finally happy. Mom's been gone for 15 years. Dad, you raised me alone, but now I need my own life. Edward loves me. He proposed to me on that trip to the lakes. Remember? Stay out of it. I gripped the edge of the kitchen counter, my knuckles turning white against the wood. Memories flooded back, uninvited. Claire, as a little girl, after her mother's accident, clinging to me during those endless nights. My father, her grandpa, had stepped in then, taking us fishing on the great river, teaching her chess in his cozy study, always whispering advice about how to spot the users in life. He died just 2 months ago at 80, leaving me that staggering inheritance, $9 million from his savvy investments. I had planned to tell Claire eventually, but now, with this rushed engagement, no, something didn't fit. Claire, please, I begged, moving closer. Think about it. You've only known him for a year. Why the rush? Her face twisted in anger, tears welling up. Because I love him. And if you can't support me, then don't come to the wedding. She grabbed her coat from the hook by the door, the fabric whispering like a final goodbye, and stormed out into the snowy night. The door slammed shut, echoing through the empty house. I sank into the armchair, staring at the broken photo on the floor. My chest tightened with a mix of anger and sadness. Raising her had been my everything, subsisting on my pension after retiring early to be present for her school plays, her heartbreaks. Grandpa had helped with the bills, always saying, "Protect your blood, Philip. Family is all we have." And now this Edward, with his flashy real estate job, and that condescending mother of his, Catherine, who looked at our home like it was beneath her. I picked up the photo, brushing away the fragments. Maybe I was wrong, maybe he was just ambitious. But deep down, a knot formed in my stomach. Claire's words hurt, but I couldn't let her walk into a trap. The inheritance papers were in my desk drawer, untouched since the lawyer's call. Thank God I hadn't mentioned it yet. If Edward knew, no, I'd keep it hidden. For her safety. For now, as the hours passed, the house grew colder, the furnace humming uselessly against the state's winter. I paced again, replaying the fight, until I finally reached for my phone on the side table. The phone felt heavy in my hand as I dialed Claire's number, the screen glowing in the dim living room. It rang twice before she picked up, her voice hesitant. "Dad, it's late." "I know," I said, leaning against the wall, where family photos hung like silent witnesses. I couldn't sleep. Claire, I'm sorry. I overreacted. If Edward makes you happy, then I'll be there, at the wedding. There was a pause, then a soft sigh. Really? Oh, Dad, thank you. I didn't mean to hurt you. It's just everything is moving so fast. But it's the right thing. You'll see. We talked for a while, her excitement bubbling through the line as she described the venue. A charming hall downtown, overlooking the river as it thawed in the early spring. I forced a smile into my voice. But inside, the doubts lingered. After hanging up, I walked to my study, the floorboards creaking under my feet. The desk drawer slid open with a whisper, revealing the lawyer's envelope. Estate of James Vargas, $9 million. I sealed it in a safe deposit box and pushed it to the back of the closet, burying the secret like a time capsule. The next few weeks faded into a routine of reconciliation. February brought milder days, the snow melting into slush on the neighborhood streets. I visited Grandpa's grave at the quiet cemetery just outside of town, the wind whispering through the bare trees as I knelt by the headstone. You'd know what to do, Dad, I murmured, tracing the engraved dates, 1943 to 2023. He had built that fortune quietly, investing in local properties, while teaching me the value of discretion. Protect her, he had said on his deathbed, squeezing my hand. The memories hit me there, Claire at 10, laughing as Grandpa pushed her on his backyard swing. Me, widowed and overwhelmed, leaning on him for advice during her rebellious teen years. Back home, I dove into wedding preparations to bridge the gap. I attended a fitting at the bridal shop, watching Claire spin in her dress, the lace catching the fluorescent lights. You look beautiful, I told her, hugging her awkwardly among the mirrors. Thanks, Dad. Edward's mom is helping with the flowers. Catherine has great taste, Claire beamed, but I noticed the subtle tightness in her smile when she mentioned Catherine. Then came the planning lunch at a cozy restaurant on Main Street. Edward and Catherine joined us, their luxury car parked ostentatiously next to our modest sedans. Edward shook my hand firmly, his eyes scanning the menu with disinterest. Philip, glad you're on board. This wedding is going to be top-notch. Catherine, with her perfect hair and designer scarf, leaned in. Yes, we're sparing no expense. Claire deserves the best. Her tone had an edge of superiority, as if our family needed to be elevated. Over sandwiches, the conversation flowed, but the tension simmered. I overheard Catherine whisper to Edward, "Make sure the prenup covers everything, just in case." He nodded, smirking. My fork stopped mid-air. Was that greed I detected? Claire chatted animatedly about honeymoons. Oblivious. Later, alone in my car on the drive home, my grip tightened on the wheel. That comment gnawed at me. I stopped by my old friend Jim's office, a lawyer in a small strip mall, and casually asked about inheritance privacy. "It's totally airtight if you don't disclose it," he assured me, handing me a pamphlet. "But why hide it?" "Just a precaution," I replied, tucking it away. March arrived with budding trees, and the wedding loomed in April. I helped Claire pack memories at her apartment, a small place she now shared with Edward. Boxes cluttered the living room, tissue paper rustling as we worked. "Dad, Edward has been so supportive," she said, tying a ribbon. "He even suggested we buy a house. Something bigger." I nodded. But inside, alarms went off. His real estate background made sense, but the pressure felt calculated. "Sounds ambitious. Just make sure it's what you want." She paused, ribbon in hand. "Of course. Why wouldn't it be?" That night, at a family dinner, Edward hosted at his place. Catherine dominated the conversation, bragging about her business dealings. Edward chimed in, his arm draped possessively around Claire. As dessert was served, a cake from a local bakery, the talk turned to the future. "Philip, you must have some savings put away from your engineering days," Edward said casually, his eyes sharp. I deflected with a laugh. Enough to get by, but his gaze lingered, and Catherine's smile didn't reach her eyes. Leaving, waving goodbye from the porch, a chill that had nothing to do with the night air settled over me. The wedding was just weeks away, and something in their behavior whispered trouble. I walked into the downtown wedding hall on that cool March evening in 2024, floral arches framing the entrance like a deceptive promise of joy. The unease from that family dinner lingered, a knot in my stomach as I adjusted my tie, scanning the crowd. Guests mingled under the chandeliers, their chatter mixing with soft music, but I caught Catherine's sharp gaze from across the room. She stood by Edward, both in tailored outfits that screamed excess. The ceremony began promptly. Claire walked down the aisle on my arm, her veil fluttering slightly. She squeezed my hand, whispering, "Thanks for being here, Dad." I nodded, forcing calm, though my mind flashed back to Grandpa's warnings about hasty unions. Vows were exchanged, Edward's voice firm, almost rehearsed, as the officiant declared them husband and wife. Applause erupted, but I clapped mechanically, watching Edward kiss her with a possessiveness that made me grind my teeth. At the reception, tables groaned under platters of traditional dishes: roast beef, mashed potatoes, and salads dotted with local cheeses. I navigated the crowd, greeting relatives, but the tension mounted as I approached the head table. Catherine intercepted me with a champagne flute, her smile strained. "Philip, how quaint you're here alone. No date from your circles?" I accepted the glass, my grip steady. "Family is enough for me." "Catherine, congratulations on the day," she leaned in, her voice low. "Edward worked hard for this. Claire is lucky. He'll elevate her beyond, well, what she's known." Her eyes flicked to my simple suit, a barb I ignored, but it stung like salt in a fresh wound. Edward joined us, clapping my shoulder too hard. "Philip, great turnout. Your toast later. Keep it short." "Okay, we're on a schedule." I moved away, seeking a seat, but I heard guests murmuring near the bar. "Marrying up, that's for sure. Her father's sweet, but that house they have." Heat rose in my cheeks. Claire danced with Edward, laughing, though her eyes darted to me now and then, as if seeking reassurance. The toast came after dinner. I stood, glass raised, heart pounding. "To Claire and Edward, may your life together be filled with the love and respect Claire deserves. She's my world, and I trust you'll treasure her as such." Murmurs of agreement followed, but Edward chuckled into his mic nearby. "Thanks, Philip. Appreciate the sentiment. And hey, with my deals closing soon, we'll have plenty to treasure. Houses, trips, everything. No more scraping by." A laugh rippled through, but it felt aimed, a veiled insult to my modest life, Catherine added from her seat. "Indeed, progress is everything." Claire shot me an apologetic look, but didn't intervene. I sat, fists clenched under the table, silently vowing to stay vigilant. This wasn't just arrogance. It reeked of calculation. As the night wore on, we cut the cake, a towering creation with intricate frosting that contrasted the bitterness growing in me. I danced briefly with Claire, her head on my shoulder. "Dad, ignore them. They're just excited." "Excited about what?" "Exactly?" I asked quietly, spinning her gently. She hesitated, then smiled. "Our future. It's bright." But as the band played on, I saw Edward whispering to Catherine, their heads together, gesturing animatedly. What were they plotting? The unexpected twist came during the garter toss. Edward flung it with flair, landing near a group of his colleagues, who cheered. One joked loudly, "Bet on the inheritance next time." Edward laughed, but his eyes met mine for a fraction of a second, sharp and knowing. Did he suspect something about Grandpa's estate? My pulse quickened. Thank God I'd hidden it. The evening ended with goodbyes. Claire hugged me tightly outside, the spring air laced with a hint of rain. "I love you. Dad, honeymoon's next. Talk soon. I watched their car pull away, taillights fading into the night. That knot of worry tightening. What awaited her in that new life? A week later, my phone rang shrilly in the quiet of my living room, pulling me from a book. It was late March, and the days had dragged by with uneasy texts from Claire. Short updates about settling in, nothing deep. Her name flashed on the screen, and I answered quickly. "Claire? Is everything okay?" Her voice broke, sobs punctuating the words. "Dad, please, come get me. I can't stay here. It's all wrong." My heart dropped. "What happened? Where's Edward? Just come. I'm outside with my stuff. Hurry." She hung up, leaving me staring at the phone, mind racing. I grabbed my keys from the hook, coat half on, and ran to the car. The engine roared to life as I peeled out of the driveway. Rain began to tap at the windshield, mirroring the storm inside me. What had he done? Memories of the wedding, her radiant smile, clashed with this nightmare. I'd reached out daily via text, sensing her replies growing shorter, but she'd brushed off my concerns. 15 minutes later, I turned onto her street in the upscale suburb, headlights cutting through the drizzle. Claire was on the porch, 2 suitcases at her feet, hair plastered to her face, shoulders shaking. No lights were on inside. The house loomed dark and empty. I jumped from the car, rain soaking my shirt as I ran to her. "Claire, get in the car. We'll get your bags." She wrapped her arms around me, burying her face in my shoulder. "Dad, thank you. They aren't home. They left with his mother, probably celebrating whatever scheme they have." I threw the bags in the trunk, the dull thud echoing my resolve. "Tell me what happened. Did he hurt you?" She slid into the passenger seat, wiping her eyes on her sleeve. "Not physically, but it's bad. Let's just go. I just want to get away from here." I started the car, pulling away slowly, wipers moving rhythmically. The suburb faded behind us, replaced by the quieter highways leading back to my place. "Start from the beginning. Whatever it is, we'll fix it." She took a shaky breath, gripping the door handle. After the honeymoon talk fell through, he said work was too busy. We argued. Then, yesterday, I found papers, divorce papers, Dad, hidden in his drawer, and texts on his phone, to another woman. He's been planning this. My grip on the wheel tightened, anger rising, but I kept my voice calm. Divorce? Already? And cheating? Tears streamed down her face. Worse. He mentioned something about securing assets in a call with Catherine. I frowned, remembering Grandpa's stories about his real estate dealings. Dad, is he talking about something Grandpa left? You never mentioned a will. I shook my head, brushing it off. Nothing to tell yet. Claire, let's focus on getting you out of this first. Like they expected money from you, or Grandpa. I confronted him, and he laughed. Said I was naive, that the marriage was a step up for me. But now it wasn't worth the trouble. The twist tore through me. Not just the betrayal, but the premeditated greed. I passed her a tissue from the glove box, our fingers brushing. Why now? What changed? She dabbed at her eyes, her voice trembling. I don't know everything yet, but he kept asking about your finances, probing. When I told him you didn't have anything significant, he grew distant. Dad, I ignored your warnings. I'm so sorry. We turned onto my street, the house lights welcoming us through the rain. But she paused, staring out the window. There's more. He said if I leave quietly, no trouble, but I think they're after something. Maybe the house, or... Wait, did Grandpa leave something I don't know about? I glanced at her, the question hanging heavily as we pulled into the drive. I passed Claire the tissue as we drove through the slick city streets, the wipers sweeping in steady arcs across the windshield. Here, dry your eyes, I said gently, keeping one hand on the wheel. Take your time, but tell me everything. We can't fix this if I don't know. She pressed the tissue to her face, the fibers catching on her damp skin like fragile regrets. It started right after the wedding. We didn't even go on that honeymoon he promised. He said work was piling up. But yesterday, I came home early from the office, just feeling off. His car was there, but the house was too quiet. I went inside, and I heard voices from the bedroom, not just his, hers, a woman from his office. I think they were together. I just froze at the door. Dad. He didn't even look sorry when he saw me, just annoyed, like I'd interrupted something trivial. My knuckles turned white on the steering wheel. Rage bubbled up, but I swallowed it, focusing on the road, headlights piercing the fog rolling in off the great river. And the divorce papers. You mentioned texts. She nodded, wadding the tissue in her fist. After I confronted him, he threw the papers at me, said to sign them. Quick. No fuss. But first I grabbed his phone, texts to her, from months ago, and to Catherine, too, planning, about assets, and how to secure the family fortune. He kept grilling me about Grandpa's will, asking if you'd hidden anything. I told him nothing, but he just laughed, said I was blind. Dad, I should have listened to you from the start. Your warnings at that dinner. I defended him. But deep down, I saw the red flags. Like that text I ignored before the wedding. Him joking with a friend about marrying for money. I thought it was harmless. The twist hit me like a punch. Not just infidelity, but a calculated hunt for the inheritance I'd buried. I glanced at her, seeing the little girl I'd raised reflected in her tired eyes. Memories surfaced, unbidden, kneeling at Grandpa's grave last month, vowing to protect her like he'd protected us. His steady hands on my shoulder during those rough years after her mom died. This isn't your fault, Claire. He's the deceiver. We'll handle it. Lawyers. Whatever it takes. You're safe now. She slipped off her wedding ring, dropping it into the cup holder with a soft clink. I feel so stupid. I rushed into everything. For what? Independence? Love? It was a lie. We turned onto my street, the familiar houses blurring in the downpour. I pulled into the driveway, cutting the engine. Get inside. We'll get you settled, then talk more. As I gathered her things, a distant rumble sounded. Not thunder, but an approaching car. Headlights slicing the rain like accusations. The car screeched to a halt at the curb, gravel spitting under the tires, and Edward jumped out, his face contorted in fury under the harsh streetlight. It was early April, just hours since I'd brought Claire home. She'd been sipping tea in the kitchen, spilling more details between sobs. Then she'd dozed fitfully on the sofa while I paced, my resolve hardening like steel. The confrontation I'd anticipated had arrived sooner than expected. I stepped out onto the lawn, the cool night air biting at my skin, positioning myself between the house and him. Edward, turn around and leave. She's not going anywhere with you. He slammed his car door, advancing with clenched fists. Where is she? Claire, get out here. This isn't over. His voice boomed, bouncing off the neighbors' houses, a few porch lights flickering on in response. I held my ground, arms crossed. She's inside, safe. You betrayed her. You cheated on her. And now it's over. Get off my property before I call the police. He laughed bitterly, stopping just short of me, rain dripping from his hair. Safe? From what? Her own decisions? She signed up for this marriage. And you? Hiding what little scraps you have? Catherine knows people. We'll drag this out. We'll take what's ours. You think you're protecting her? You're just delaying the inevitable. The taunt fueled my defiance. Remembering the wedding reception, his smug toast about progress, Catherine's condescending nods. They'd underestimated me then, and now. The threats won't work. Leave, or I'm making that call. Claire wants nothing from you except her freedom. Through the window, I saw Claire peeking, her hand on the curtain, eyes wide. Edward spotted her, his expression softening falsely. Claire, baby, Come on. We can talk about this. Your father is filling your head with nonsense. She didn't move, and I stepped forward, my voice low and steady. She's done talking. Go. He hesitated one more moment, the twist coming as he sneered. Fine, but I know more than you think about that old man's money. Catherine is already on it. You'll regret this. He spun around, wrenching his car door open with a metal groan, and sped off, tail lights disappearing into the night. I exhaled slowly, the lawn quiet again save for the patter of rain, locking the front door behind me as I stepped inside. I turned to Claire, who stood in the hallway, hugging herself. He's gone. Now let's look at those divorce papers. We'll get a lawyer first thing tomorrow. She nodded, sinking into a chair at the kitchen table, opening the folder she'd brought. Okay. But Dad, what if he does know about the inheritance? We need a plan. The next morning, light streamed through the kitchen blinds, casting long shadows on the table where Claire and I sat with hot mugs of coffee. After Edward's tumultuous departure, the air in our home still hummed with unresolved tension. Claire stirred her coffee absently, her eyes red from a restless night. We can't wait, Dad. These papers he gave me are full of demands. I have to file first. Make it official. I nodded, setting my mug down with a soft clink. Steam rose like a veil between us. You're right. Let's gather what we need. Marriage certificate, IDs, UNI joint accounts. I'll drive us to Jim's office downtown. He's an old friend of mine. Trusted. We rose together, moving through the house with purposeful steps. I opened the hall closet, digging through a box of important documents, my fingers brushing the faded edges of her birth certificate, our old family photos. Claire joined me, stacking papers on the table. Her driver's license, the marriage license we'd signed just weeks ago, a bitter artifact now. She paused over a snapshot from the reception, her in the dress, Edward beaming beside her. Her hand trembled slightly before she put it away. I can't believe how blind I was. But it's over. We gathered everything into a folder, the pages whispering like dry leaves, and headed out. The car doors shut with a dull thud, and I started the engine, navigating the spring traffic along the bluffs of the great river. Claire stared out the window, the budding trees a blur. What if he plays dirty? He mentioned assets again last night. He keeps assuming we're broke. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it, I said, merging onto the main road. The hum of the tires on the pavement steadied my thoughts, reminding me of drives with Grandpa, his voice cautioning against haste. Memories flickered. Edward's wedding toast, bragging about deals and progress, his eyes gleaming with unspoken ambition. I'd brushed it off then, but now it fueled my suspicion. We arrived at the lawyer's office in a modest downtown building, the parking lot half full of sedans like ours. Inside, the waiting room smelled of stale coffee and old files. The receptionist waved us back to Jim's cluttered desk, piled high with manila folders and a half-eaten donut. Jim, a balding man in his 60 seconds with wire-rimmed glasses, stood to shake our hands. Philip, Claire, tough situation, but we'll sort it. Sit down. We settled into worn chairs, spreading the documents on his desk. Jim scanned them, his pen tapping a steady rhythm. Grounds for divorce. Infidelity. From what you described. We have the text as proof? Good. We'll file for dissolution today. We'll aim for an amicable divorce, but prepare for resistance. Claire leaned forward, her voice firm. He cheated. He lied about everything. I want out. Clean. No alimony games. Jim nodded, pulling forms from a drawer. Smart. Sign here. Initial there. We'll get the petition filed with the court. The hearing will be in a few weeks. As we worked, my phone buzzed on the desk, vibrating insistently. Edward's name flashed. I glanced at Claire, who tensed, shrugging. Answer it. Let's see what he says. I accepted, putting it on speaker. What do you want, Edward? His voice crackled, laced with venom. Think you're smart? Filing already. Catherine found out from a mutual friend. Claire's at a lawyer. Listen, old man. Drop this. Sign the papers I gave her, or I'll bury you in court. We know you're hiding something. Debts, maybe? We'll expose it all. Claire's eyes flashed. Expose what? Your affair? Go ahead. Edward, I'm done with your threats. He laughed, short and harsh. Big words. But when the judge sees how unstable she is, running off like that? We'll claim abandonment. And the assets? We'll take the house, the car, what little scraps you have. Catherine has connections. Jim gestured calmly, mouthing, record this. I kept my cool. Threats won't change the facts. Stay away from us. I hung up, the line clicking dead. The room fell silent, save for the ticking of a wall clock. Jim cleared his throat. That helps our case. Harassment. I'll note it. We finished signing. The pen scratching finality onto the paper. Claire exhaled, a weight lifting slightly. It feels like a start. Back in the car, driving home through lighter traffic. I replayed his words. Hiding something. He was fishing, but close. Thank God for the safe deposit box in my closet. The inheritance untouched. Pulling into the driveway, my phone buzzed again. A text from Edward. File if you want. We'll win. You have no idea what's coming. I stared at the screen, the words glowing like a challenge, my mind already turning to deeper protections. A few days later, the phone rang again as I paced the living room. The late afternoon sun slanted across the worn carpet. We'd spent the week in an uneasy limbo. Claire back at her job. Me, researching divorce basics online late into the night. The screen's blue glow etching lines of determination onto my face. Edward's voice barged through when I answered, smug and amplified. Philip, you should have listened. I've got the best lawyers money can buy. A top firm from the state capital. They'll tear your little claim apart. Claire thinks she can just walk away. We'll claim everything, assuming your Poverty Act is just that, an act. I gripped the phone tighter, standing by the window where the curtains fluttered in the breeze. Bluff all you want, Edward. The truth is on our side. He chuckled, low and mocking. Truth? Like how Claire was the one who walked out. Catherine is already talking to friends. Word is getting around she got cold feet. Maybe even was unfaithful first. People talk in this town. The line went dead, leaving a hollow echo. I set the phone down. Heart pounding. Rumors. Smart poison. That night, a hesitant knock sounded on the door during dinner. Claire paused. Fork midair. Who now? It was Mrs. Ortiz. From next door, her gray hair pinned up, holding a hot casserole dish like a peace offering. Philip. Dear. I heard. Well, whispers. At the card club. Catherine is saying Claire left Edward for nothing, that she's unstable, even hinted at an affair on her part. I don't believe it, but I thought you should know. Claire joined me at the door, her face pale. That's a lie. He's twisting it to make me look bad. Mrs. Ortiz nodded sympathetically, I figured. But it's spreading. I saw it on the neighborhood social media group. 2. She handed over the dish, the ceramic warm against my palms, and walked away. We shut the door, the deadbolt sliding home. Claire paced now, arms crossed. They're playing dirty. At work today, a colleague asked if I was okay. Said she'd heard from a friend of Catherine's about the trouble. We have to fight back. I nodded, moving to my study where the computer hummed to life. Agreed. Time to use what I have. Fingers flying over the keys. I searched for private investigators in the city. Discreet, specializing in marital disputes. One man popped up, an ex-cop with good reviews. Memories hit me. Burying the inheritance papers months ago, Grandpa's voice echoing. Discretion saves lives. Hiding it had been wise. Now, I'd use a small, anonymous portion. Claire peered over my shoulder. A detective? To investigate Edward? Yes. Proof of his affair. Any financial schemes. We'll turn the tables. I dialed the number. Setting a meeting for the next day at a quiet downtown coffee shop. As we talked, an anonymous text vibrated. She's the cheater. Watch your back. Probably from one of his circle. The twist came that night. Claire listened to a voicemail from a blocked number, Catherine's voice, seeping through. "Tell Philip we'll expose the family secrets if they don't back off. I know there's more to that old man's will." She played it for me, her hands steady despite the tremor in her voice. "They're desperate," I said, deleting it, but noting the fear beneath their bluster. We researched more, the keyboard clicks punctuating our plans. By morning, I'd transferred a retainer from a separate account, the transaction invisible. As I finalized the detective's appointment, a court notice arrived in the mail. Preliminary hearing set. The tide was turning, my hidden strength, ready to emerge. In late April, I stood in the dim light of my study. The court notice, slightly crumpled in my hand from gripping it too tightly. The preliminary hearing was set for next month, a ticking clock that amplified every shadow in the room. I set the paper down next to the safe deposit box I'd pulled from the closet, its metal edges cold beneath my fingers. Inside lay the inheritance documents. $9 million. Grandpa's legacy, hidden like a weapon in reserve. Staring at the figures, I felt a surge of determination. It was time to wield it, carefully. Turning the secret into both a shield and a sword, I picked up the phone, dialing the number of an elite lawyer I'd researched online, one specializing in family disputes and asset protection. The line connected after 2 rings. "Mr. Vargas, this is Elena Vasquez. How can I help you?" Her voice was crisp, professional. "I need representation for a divorce case involving potential fraud," discreetly, "and resources to investigate the other party." We set a meeting for the next day, at a quiet cafe outside the city, away from prying eyes. After hanging up, I transferred a modest retainer from a separate, anonymous account. 50,000 to start, untraceable to the main fortune. The transaction confirmed with a soft ping on my computer, and I sat back, my mind drifting to November 2023, Grandpa on his deathbed, his frail hand in mine. "Philip, the money is for protection, not for show. Use it wisely, against those who would steal our peace." His eyes had burned with that final wisdom. The room heavy with the smell of hospital antiseptic. I had nodded, sealing the vow. The next morning, I drove to the cafe. The spring sun glinted off the great river as I crossed the bridge, wildflowers dotting the roadside. A deceptive calm. Inside, Elena waited in a corner booth, her dark hair pulled back, a tablet open before her. We shook hands, and I slid the folder of initial documents across. "Edward is pushing for assets he assumes don't exist. But there's more. Rumors, threats. I want a detective to dig deeper." She scanned the pages, nodding slowly. "Smart. I know a good one. Ex-federal agent. Specializes in financial trails. He'll find any irregularities." Our conversation flowed in low tones, her sketching out strategies, countersuits for emotional distress, proof of infidelity to nullify his demands. I authorized another transfer for the detective, the amount vanishing into the digital ether. The weeks blurred as I balanced daily routines, walks along the riverbank to clear my head, where the steady flow of the water mirrored my growing patience with the covert progress. Claire stayed with me, her job providing structure, as we waited for updates. One afternoon in early May, the detective, a burly man named Reyes, met me on a shaded park bench downtown. He handed me a manila envelope, its seal breaking with a faint rip. Photos, timestamps, Edward meeting with shady notaries, backdated documents suggesting asset transfers, and Catherine is involved. Bank records show payoffs. I thumbed through the images. Edward in a low-lit office, signing papers with a grinning notary. A twist caught me. One photo showed him looking at a file labeled Vargas Estate Inquiry. They were closer than I thought, probing public records for Grandpa's will. "This is gold," I murmured. Reyes grunted. "Enough to expose the forgery in court, but keep your cards close to your chest. Don't tip them off." Elena reviewed everything at our next session in her office. the stack of reports growing on her desk like a fortress. "We'll save this for the hearing. Let them overplay their hand first." I signed off on more funds, tucking the remaining millions away again, a symbolic act of restraint amid the storm. As the hearing approached, I drove to the courthouse for a pretrial conference. The building's stone facade looming under gathering clouds. Claire came with me, her hand on my arm. "We're ready, Dad." We parked and walked up the steps, the weight of the files in my briefcase, a promise of a reckoning. Inside, the hallway echoed with footsteps, leading us to the courtroom door where voices murmured beyond. When we entered the wood-paneled courtroom, the light of early summer filtered through the tall windows. It had been over a year since the wedding. Months of testimony, delays by Edward, and our quiet gathering of evidence. Claire and I filled the time with strategy sessions at Elena's office, anxious nights watching the news, and simple routines like dinners together to maintain sanity. Now, sitting on the hard benches, I watched the trial unfold, my pulse steady but wary. The judge, a stern woman in her 60 seconds, called the case. In the matter of the dissolution of marriage, Claire Vargas versus Edward Harlan. Edward sat across the aisle with Catherine beside him. Their lawyer, a slick man in a tailored suit. The bailiff swore in the first witness. The notary, a nervous-looking fellow with thinning hair, who took the stand, fidgeting with his tie. Edward's lawyer approached, his voice smooth, inquisitive. "Mr. Lopez, describe the document you notarized for Mr. Harlan." Lopez cleared his throat, glancing at Edward. "It was a property transfer agreement, Mr. Harlan and his wife signed it, granting him rights over family assets. I verified the IDs, sealed it officially." Murmurs rippled through the sparse audience. Relatives, a few neighbors. Claire tensed beside me, whispering, "That's fake. I never signed anything like that." Elena patted her hand, her eyes on the stand. The cross-examination came quickly. Elena rose, her heels clicking on the floor. "Mr. Lopez, this document is dated before the wedding, yet records show you weren't licensed then." "Care to explain?" He shifted. Sweat beaded on his forehead. "Must be a mix-up." "I remember the signing, clearly." Elena pressed on, sliding a photo across. "Our detectives found this, time-stamped. Is this you, accepting cash from Mrs. Harlan, days before? A bribe, perhaps?" The objection shot from their side. Speculative. But the judge overruled, her gaze sharpening. "Answer the question," Lopez stammered. "It was a loan, unrelated." The room quieted, the creak of the benches amplifying the fragile lie. Catherine testified next, her posture rigid, her voice dripping with condescension. "Claire was unstable from the start. She left abruptly, spread rumors about my son. That transfer? She agreed to it verbally. We formalized it for protection." Elena countered sharply. "Protection from what? Your son's infidelity? We have texts proving otherwise." She submitted printouts, the paper rustling as the judge reviewed them. Edward leaned forward during a recess, hissing across the aisle. "Give it up, Philip. We'll take it all. The house, the savings. It's Claire's word against ours." I met his gaze, unflinching. Words fall apart against the truth. Echoes of the detective's reports resonated. Payoffs traced to Catherine's accounts. Edward's affairs documented in detail. Back in session, their lawyer paraded a character witness, a colleague who smeared Claire as impulsive. She walked out for no reason, probably hiding her own secrets. Claire squeezed my hand, her resolve shining. Elena dismantled him on cross-examination. "And you witnessed this? Or did you hear it from Mr. Harlan?" The twist came mid-testimony. Lopez was recalled. He faltered under cross-examination. Elena presented a recorded confession, obtained legally by our detective, where Lopez admitted to faking the signature in exchange for a payment. The judge admitted the recording as evidence, overruling Edward's team's objections, who claimed it was coerced. Lopez's silence on the stand spoke volumes. Gasps filled the air. The judge gaveling for order. Elena addressed the bench. Your Honor, we have more. Financial trails proving premeditated fraud. She rose with our folder, the room tensing as she approached, papers in hand, ready to unravel their web. Elena advanced in the city courtroom that day in May 2025. Her binder of evidence held high like a banner of truth. The judge leaned forward, glasses perched on her nose, as the gallery held a collective breath. Your Honor, this evidence dismantles their claims, Elena declared. Her voice steady and sharp, she handed up the stack. Detective reports, bank statements, tracing payoffs, audio transcripts from hidden recordings. The judge thumbed through them, the pages whispering beneath her fingers. Edward shifted in his seat, his face pale, as Catherine gripped the armrest, her knuckles white. Their lawyer jumped up. Objection. Unclear chain of custody. This could be fabricated. Overruled, the judge snapped, her tone allowing no argument. Continue, Miss Vasquez. Elena nodded, projecting an audio clip through the courtroom speakers. Lopez's voice crackled. Yeah, I'll backdate it for the right price. Make it look legit. Gasps echoed from the benches, the light from the windows shifting over shocked faces, illuminating the unraveling deceit. Edward leaned toward Catherine, whispering urgently, but she shushed him with a sharp look. I sat beside Claire, my hand over hers, feeling her racing pulse. Memory surfaced. The late-night call from the detective weeks ago, detailing that very recording from a device planted at their meeting spot. Got him on tape, he'd said gruffly. Now, it paid off. The judge paused, tapping her pen rhythmically. This evidence suggests perjury and fraud. The property transfer is invalid, stricken from the record. She turned to Lopez on the stand. You contradicted yourself earlier. Explain. He mumbled, eyes darting. I was pressured. Protests erupted from Edward's side, their lawyer lightly slamming his fist on the table. This is entrapment. We demand a mistrial. Denied, the judge replied, her gavel striking once for emphasis. Furthermore, I am referring this to the district attorney for forgery and bribery charges against Mr. Harlan, Mrs. Harlan, and Mr. Lopez. Catherine stood abruptly, her voice rising in a controlled hiss. You can't do this. We had reasons, protection, against her instability. Elena countered quickly. Reasons like greed? Your financial trails show premeditation. Probing for assets you assumed existed. She submitted more evidence. Emails planning the notary scheme, dated before the wedding. The twist unfolded as the audio played a second clip. Catherine's voice. Once we secure the inheritance through the marriage, we sell it off. The room grew even tighter, the murmurs growing. Edward slumped, burying his face in his hands. No, that's taken out of context. He mumbled weakly. The judge reviewed silently for a moment, the clock ticking audibly in the quiet. Divorce granted to the plaintiff. No division of assets to the defendant. Court costs to be paid by Mr. Harlan, bailiff. Escort Mr. Lopez for questioning. The notary rose, trembling, handcuffs clicking as security approached. As court adjourned, I met Claire's gaze, her eyes shining with vindication, mine with quiet triumph. We gathered our things, stepping out into the hallway where the gavel's echo faded, her hand squeezing my arm in wordless thanks. We walked down the courthouse steps into the late May sunshine, the warmth seeping through our clothes like a balm after the cold confrontation. Claire paused at the bottom, turning to me with a deep breath. Dad, I don't know how we afforded Elena and that detective. You must have scraped together every last penny. Let me pay you back. Somehow, I smiled faintly, guiding her toward the car parked across the street. No need. There's more to tell. We slid into the seats, the engine humming to life as I pulled onto the road. The familiar streets passed by, flowering trees lining the way home. a contrast to the storm we'd weathered. The drive was quiet, thoughtful, her gaze out the window, mine on the horizon. At home, we settled in the living room, the evening light casting golden hues through the curtains. I stood, moving to the study desk, where the safe deposit box waited. "Claire, sit down. It's time you knew." She perched on the edge of the sofa, her brow furrowed. "Knew what? You've already done so much, raising me alone. Fighting this." I opened the box with a soft click, pulling out the envelope marked estate of James Vargas. Grandpa left us secure. $9 million from his investments. He died in late 2023. Remember? I hid it after the will reading, sensing trouble with Edward. Her eyes went wide, hands flying to her mouth. 9 million? Dad? Why keep it secret? We struggled. The bills? The house? I sat beside her, spreading the papers on the coffee table, their rustle filling the quiet room. For protection, Grandpa warned me on his deathbed. The users will come sniffing. That hospital room, his voice weak but firm, echoing his fishing trips with us, teaching caution. When Edward probed at dinners, smirking about the future, I knew. Hiding it saved us from their grip. She traced the figures, tears welling. All this time, you let them think we were broke. You endured their jabs. For me, always for you, I said softly, pulling her into a hug, her shoulders relaxing against mine. Memories entwined, Grandpa's cozy study, chess pieces clicking, as he shared stories of shrewd deals, his eyes twinkling. He built it quietly, for family. It's ours now, to heal, to build. The twist came as she turned a page, finding a note in Grandpa's handwriting. "Philip, tell Claire, when it's safe, a legacy of strength, not just money." She laughed through her tears. He knew, those stories he told me as a kid, about spotting fakes. It all makes sense. We talked late into the evening, sharing memories over tea, the steam curling like released burdens. "What now?" she asked, her voice hopeful. "With this, we can start over. Maybe a trip, like to those lakes he loved so much." I nodded, pulling old albums from the shelf, photos spilling out, the three of us, in happier times, as we looked through them. The future unfolded before us, bound by lasting ties and hard-won peace. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts on this story in the comments. To hear the next story, click the box on the left. Thank you for listening.